Good evening and welcome to the Burbank Police Commission meeting for Wednesday, April the 20th, 2022. Could we call to order the roll call?
Chair Chapman?
Here.
Commissioner Coombs is absent. Commissioner Elman?
Here.
Commissioner Feruzin?
Here.
Commissioner Hakobian is absent. Commissioner Liu?
Here.
And Commissioner Turner is absent.
Good, thank you.
Before we start, can I get a confirmation from you, Ms. Nakamura, that the city's telephone lines are working?
From what I understand, that they're working intermittently, but some Verizon customers are working and some are not.
Well, I'm not talking about the people calling in per se. We just need to make sure our city lines are working. So let's confirm that our city lines are not affected by any of whatever is going on externally, and our lines are open and available to take public comment.
They are. We've tested it.
Okay. You may proceed, Chair. Go ahead.
Good, thank you. And we'll continue with the flag salute, and this evening Officer Ryan Rhodes will lead the salute. Please stand and place your hand on your heart. Place your right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Officer Rhodes. The public comment period for this evening is coming up in a few minutes. And to speak during this period, please give a call to area code 818-238-3335. Again, that's 818-238-3335. The city staff will answer the phones and announce to the speakers in a real time to the chair when the public comment period begins. And just to be aware, our phones are working here this evening, but I understand that there are some issues with some Verizon customers. If you have an issue, please either try an alternate phone. Our commission announcements and reporting out by commission subcommittees. Do we have any announcements or anything to report out? All right. We have a committee that's working on self-evaluation, and I believe, is there anybody here that's on that commission? I guess not. So we'll have to move on. And then we also have the
Chairman Chapman?
I'm sorry?
Commissioner Felucci had something.
Good, okay, go right ahead.
Okay, thank you. So I just wanted to make sure that folks know about a really great program offered by the department, which is called Etch and Catch. And so I wanted to thank the department for doing that. And the purpose of the program is to etch a kind of unique number onto the catalytic converter in your car because there have been a lot of recent thefts because they are quite expensive, I guess, or the materials within them are quite expensive. And so I know I have one of the cars on the list of those most likely to be stolen. And so, I took advantage of the program last time it was available. It was quick, it was really easy, and hopefully it will help identify those responsible and make this a less appealing, easy option for theft. And so I just want to make sure people know about that. There are a couple, auto shops that have kind of partnered with the department that will etch your catalytic converter for free. So you can find that on the department's website, and I'm sure that folks from the department could share more information about that. And then also just a note that we're still awaiting the traffic safety data, so no real update on that at this time. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I believe that's everything we have there. Now on to oral communications. We have no one in the audience here this evening. Do we have anybody on the phone waiting? No. Okay. All right. That makes the commission response to public comments very short. Sorry.
We can't hear you. Can you repeat whatever you just
For
said?
the March 16th minutes, do we have everybody got a copy, and do we have anybody who would like to motion for an approval? Mr. Ellman, or Commissioner Ellman, would you like to make a motion that we approve the minutes?
I move we approve the minutes of the last meeting on March, without the date,
16th.
16th. Thank you.
I'll second that.
And Commissioner Fruzen seconded it. All those in favor say aye.
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 Mr.
Opposed?
Chair, I do want to remind you, because we're doing the meeting on Zoom, we have to take a roll call vote on all votes.
Thank you for reminding me of that. Let's go down the list here. Commissioner Fruzen, do you approve the minutes for the last meeting?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Ellman,
Yes.
Commissioner Liu,
Yes.
and Commissioner Chapman, yes. Thank you. Now we move on to items of business, presentations, and discussion on the department's drone program. And we're honored this evening to have Officer Ryan Rhodes give a presentation on our drones. And it looks like he might be having some help there. Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening, Commissioner, members of the Police Commission, staff. I'm Lieutenant Claudio Lasacco, in charge of the Investigations Division and also oversee our drone program. I'm joined with Officer Ryan Rhodes, who's a motor officer and one of the pilots of the drone. I've been a drone pilot for 3 years now. I've been a pilot myself for over 20 years and have a airplane transport pilot certificate and a commercial and CFI, which means I instruct pilots. So I have quite a bit of experience in the area of what's really important is the rules surrounding drone type flying and flying in general. So this evening, if I could have the PowerPoint come up. Thank you. So this evening, myself and Officer Rhodes will go over a program overview of the drone program. We'll talk about a description of the devices that we utilize, the common uses that the organization has used the drones for. One of the questions, I believe, was how does a deployment take place and how we go through the steps and the process of using the drone. So we'll talk about that tonight. We'll talk about benefits of the drone, challenges of the drone, and some of the future uses of the drone that we kind of see. We're going to go ahead and show a video. This video here was put together. There's going to be 2 operations shown in this video. It's about 1.5 minutes long. Ryan Rhodes was the pilot on both of these operations, and then he's really, really skillful in putting these videos together. So we'll go ahead and play the video, and then he can talk about what you're seeing in the video after it shows.
recent ones. And both of these incidents took place high up in the Burbank Mountains, both of which are very inaccessible, which required the use of either a helicopter or drone, very difficult to get to on foot. The first incident that was in the video that was shown was at a time when our airship was unavailable, and some of our local airships were also unavailable to respond. So we were able to use our drone. We were able to fly it for a good period of time until we were able to locate one of these lost hikers that was up on the hill. Some of the advantages that you could see in that video again is that the terrain is very difficult, and this gives us an extension to be able to access these steep canyons where it's dangerous or very difficult for us to get officers on foot, or even the Burbank Fire Department as well. That's pretty much it for at least those two incidents, kind of just showing the advantages in search and rescue, which has been one of our common uses for our drones.
So the drone is officially known as an SUAS, which is a small unmanned aircraft system, unmanned aerial vehicle, also synonymous with drone. All those things are synonymous, so you may hear the terms used. To have a drone or a SUAS, there's no pilot inside the vehicle, obviously, and it's remotely controlled by a controller, a tablet, or autonomously. We don't have any autonomously controlled. Everything's controlled by the pilot via the controller. Our program was launched a few years ago in 2018. All our pilots are certified by the FAA. We go through a training program, complete an exam that is made by the FAA under Part 107 of the Federal Aviation Regulations. So all the rules are under Part 107. So we operate under 107 and under a COA, which is a Certificate of Authorization, which gives us the ability to do some things that the normal or a civilian wouldn't be able to do without the authorization. Currently, we have 6 trained pilots that can operate our drones. Here's the mission. You can read it. Basically to support our officers or other first responders in emergencies in a safe, responsible, and transparent manner. I'll let Ryan talk about the actual drones that we have.
So the two drones that we use look very similar. Actually, the one in the photo is one of the drones that we use, and they are DJI Mavic 2 drones. One is equipped with a zoom or an optical lens that has only a 6x capability. The other drone that we have has a FLIR camera on it. Although it's a limited quality FLIR, it can help us see, in the dark and pick up heat of either people or animals or objects inside dark environments.
So our common uses that we have seen are traffic scene documentation. Our traffic bureau uses these extensively on any of our serious traffic collisions where we might have serious injuries or fatalities. And they use a program that goes along with the drone that will take literally hundreds of images of a scene and measure them precisely down to fractions of an inch. Crime scene documentation, very similar to the traffic scene documentation. The missing persons, hikers in the hills, and small children, like you saw in the videos, very, very useful tool for those. We've used them during the fires. We've helped the fire department. Routinely, they would have to send up and they still do it, they'll send up a commander into the helicopter to see what is going on with the fire from altitude. We can do that much more efficiently with the drone and send back photos to the command post. SWAT operations, and then large assemblies of people. We've used it during the mayor's Christmas tree lighting here at City Hall and also during our event at Family Fun Day. Here's a couple pictures of our factual diagrams. You can see that it maps out very precisely where objects, cars, or other items related to the scene are with very precise acuity. Here's an example of a FLIR search that Officer Rhodes was talking about. Next to the little helipad symbol, you can see the outline of a handgun, and that can be seen at night when you wouldn't be able to see it with your naked eye. You can see it with the FLIR. Very, very useful tool. The drone has the ability to carry a night sun, which is that item that you see on the screen. And in this photo, you'll see we have officers down there with a suspect that was captured in the Verdugo Hills after a car pursuit. And that's a photo of what it looks like without the night sun on. And this next photo, this is the drone night sun, not from our helicopter, from about 75 feet above the terrain there. This night sun will shone that light on there that really helps with the officers on the scene. So there's a significant difference there, and it's very helpful. In this example, we had a call of an armed man in the Verdugo Mountains, and we used the drone to help find the individual that was armed with a long gun. And you can see here going up this road, or fire road, essentially. What you'll see here in the next photo is up in the left corner of the terrain. You can see a little bit of what looks like smoke to the left of the fire road. And that ends up being the individual that we were looking for. He has a little campsite set up there. And as we get closer, you can see that there's the little campfire he has. He's got a tent. And in the next photo, you'll actually see him coming out towards the drone that he saw. The advantage here was that the drone was able to see this smoke, the campsite, and the man before they came around the corner. The officers were coming around the corner, and they were able to guide the officers. As it turns out, the individual had an airsoft gun, not a long gun, but if he actually had a long gun, this would have been, could have been a very dangerous situation. How a deployment works is the need is identified and evaluated. So either the officers on scene or the sergeant or the watch commander will usually identify a need, or oftentimes our officers that are pilots will hear the call go out and determine that this may be needed, and they will give a call to the sergeant or the watch commander and ask them if they want it deployed. We evaluate the need, and we start the deployment. If appropriate, we will do an advisal via our social media to the public. We will set up and launch. We either can launch from the roof of our police headquarters, or we would drive the drone out to the scene and we can launch from there. The drone needs to stay within line of sight of the pilot or line of sight of a spotter that could be out forward deployed. So the drone goes up, the pilot will hand off the drone visual sight to somebody forward of the scene or at the scene, but the FAA rules require that we keep the drone in sight of a pilot or an observer that's in communication with the pilot. The feed is live, sent back to the command post via the camera, to the pilot, to the command post, and potentially to the observers. That information is then shared with the personnel in the field. Of note, the footage is recorded via our Axon app, which is our body camera application or in-car camera system. All the video is recorded on Axon, and it's saved just like any other evidence. And then just as importantly as all of this, after the deployment, we always debrief the deployment and critique what we could have done better, what went well, and what we can do better next on the next deployment. The benefits of the drone over the helicopter essentially are its very low operating cost, and it's relatively easy to operate. The operation itself is relatively simple. The rules around operating it are what's difficult, and you need to be able to manage all the different rules that are required. Like last year, the only cost that we had, I think we replaced all our batteries, so 6 batteries at less than $100 a piece. That was our entire cost for the last fiscal year. It's extremely quiet. It's able to navigate into tight spaces, keeping officers safe. It can operate with low cloud ceilings. Our helicopter is very limited. If the cloud deck comes below a certain altitude, the helicopter can't operate, but the drone can. As long as it stays out of the clouds, the drone can operate. And what I want to stress is that it's really not a replacement for the helicopter yet, the way the technology is at this point, but that's potentially on the horizon. Some of the challenges we face with the drone are the battery. It's very limited. We get about 23 minutes of flying time with the drone. So every 23 minutes, that thing needs to come back. We need to replace the battery and launch it again. And that does count the time on station. So if it takes us 4 minutes to get to the scene and 4 minutes to get back, that's 8 minutes of that 23 minutes. So it gets challenging sometimes if we have to deploy into the field. The Burbank Airport creates a lot of challenges for obvious reasons. We're close to the airport here in Burbank. Almost every deployment we have has some sort of connection to the Burbank airspace that goes to the surface here, essentially in all of Burbank. So we have to deal with a lot of challenges. We can't just go launch the drone on a whim because there's a lot of rules that we have to be aware of related to the airspace. We have to keep it within line of sight, like I talked about. If it's raining out, we're very limited on deploying the drone. And new technology is addressing some of this. ADS-B, which is essentially the radar, satellite-based radar. Pretty soon, the drones are going to be required to have that, which will essentially help us with some of the airspace issues. Battery life is getting better. So the battery life, one of the drones that just came out is advertising a 40-plus minute battery length, which would significantly improve our time in the air. Everything's getting, just like other technology, everything's getting better, smaller, and lighter. Flying over people right now is not allowed. That could change. The ability to carry objects, if we needed to, like in that video with the hiker that needed a bottle of water, we theoretically, here coming up pretty soon in the next year or so, if we purchase the bigger drone, we'll be able to put a water bottle onto the drone and bring the bottle of water to him, and maybe we don't have to feel the urge to go get that person as fast if they're conscious and awake. And the line of sight requirement potentially may change. So that's my presentation. Officer Rhodes and I are more than happy to answer any questions the commission may have.
Great, thank you for your presentation, gentlemen. Do we have any questions from the commissioners? Well, I've got a couple. How large is this thing? How big is your drone? Is it like the size of a car? Is it 3 feet, 4 feet?
I'll let Officer Rhodes answer that.
They're quite small. When they're folded up, they're smaller than a loaf of bread. And then when they're completely extended out, they're no bigger than your laptop. So
Oh, wow.
pretty small.
Excellent, excellent. You have special dispensation to operate the drones because you're with the police department. Just to refresh our memory, do the citizens of Burbank, are they allowed to fly drones within the city limits?
They are under certain circumstances. They have to deal with the same exact rules that we have to deal with, at least being in compliance with the FAA. So they would need to get approval through the FAA, which can be obtained by ordinary citizens. There also is a Burbank Municipal Code sections that also have additional rules placed on when and where they can be used as well.
One of the things that made me think is when we have an emergency, say a fire or something on the hillside, we get a lot of people coming to photograph. Mm-hmm. Do you have issues with other drones coming in?
We do. It's not primarily the police department with the issues. It's typically the fire department that is mostly affected when they're trying to use their water dropping helicopters and there's drones that are not authorized in the area. And there is federal or laws through the FAA that do prohibit that.
So normally that would be illegal for additional unlicensed or non-city officials from using a drone in the area.
So typically when there's an emergency such as a wildfire, the FAA will, at our request or at the fire department's request, erect a flight restriction. So it means that nobody can fly in that area, generally a couple miles, 3 miles, up to 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 feet. They're not able to fly any airplanes, any drones in that area whatsoever. So that's a flight restriction that would be erected, and it would be around that emergency. And we could request that through the channels with the FAA for any emergency. But typically, any wildfire where you see helicopters, water dropping or surveying, you're going to have a flight restriction.
Is the video that is taken categorized the same way as a body cam, where it's cataloged and retained for a period of time?
That's correct. It's exactly the same. So after the drone lands, we download the video to our Axon system, to evidence.com, and it is maintained in exactly the same fashion as all the other video or photographic evidence we have.
All right, and so that could be possibly available through Freedom of Information at some point.
It's available just like any the rules of any other evidence that we collect.
Okay, great. Great, thank you. Commissioner Elman?
Thank you, Commissioner Chapman. Got a question about kind of the logistics. It seemed to me with the videos of flying in the hills that you have to maintain line of sight. It seems like the pilot has to be higher on the hill so he has a better visibility.
Certainly, if you have to fly down into a canyon, you're going to need to be on a ridge top to do that. But we also have the ability to utilize observers that can maintain sight. So if our drone is deployed at one of the mesas, for instance, up there where the helicopters land, and then has to go over a ridge or so, if we have somebody on that ridge, that person, as long as he's in communication with the pilot, can maintain that visual line of sight.
What would you say in either training scenarios or in real life scenarios, the time it takes to get the drone pilot with the drone to the area where they're needed, i.e. the hills?
So from the time we decide to deploy, it's probably to get to the hills, up to one of those mesas, for instance, it's probably about 15 minutes.
Thank you.
Well, Commissioner Fruzen?
Thank you. Thank you to you both for coming down and sharing this information with us. I think, I'll speak for myself, and I think some, a lot of other folks may not be aware. So it's always good to find out about what the department's doing and all the resources that it has. So I just had, I think, two main questions. One, you mentioned that the department has a COA. I believe you said that was stood for Certificate of Authorization. And so I'm just wondering, what does that allow, what permissions does that give that police department versus, a civilian who's operating a drone? What's the difference?
Sure, great question. Generally, it allows us to operate in what's called the Class C or Class Charlie airspace, which is what Burbank is in. It's the second highest surface area protected in the FAA system for airspace, and it gives us the ability to fly in the Burbank airspace. And it also, up until recently, you weren't allowed to fly at night without that COA, without the COA, and it did give us the ability to fly at night. Now, we still need to call the FAA. We still need to get their permission to fly any individual mission that uses the COA. So while we're responding to the scene, getting to the scene, setting it up, we're calling a specific phone number to speak to somebody at the FAA to get the authorization, and then we back it up with paperwork either during and or after the fact. But all the background questions are already answered in advance, so it's not a long back and forth with the FAA. It's, hey, this is who we are, this is what we have, this is what we want to do, and there's no need to talk about all the background stuff. They look at it and they give us the approval, or don't if they decide that it's not a necessary use.
And is that, you said it's the second most protected airspace. Is that because of the airport?
That's correct, the surface area. So airspace, for example, that would be more protected or have more requirements would be like LAX or San Francisco. Those are bigger airports, much bigger space around the airport, much higher is protected by the FAA, doesn't allow other things to get in the way.
And thank you. That's helpful. And then for my second question, I'm wondering, you mentioned one of the use cases was around large assemblies of people. And I think the Christmas tree was lighting maybe was one of the examples, and I missed the other example. But I'm just wondering, in that process of, identifying a need or evaluating the need for a situation, and are there certain criteria, or how is it decided? Because there are, I'm sure, large assemblies happening, every week in Burbank, so I was just wondering what's the criteria there, and then also in another slide you mentioned that it was one of the limitations was not being able to fly over people. So I was wondering, how does that interact with the ability to fly over those type of events?
Sure. So just like any deployment we might do where we are going to be on the scene, we take an assessment of what dangers there might be. Is there any threats, potential threats? And if it would be a useful tool for us to monitor what's going on and help us see what is transpiring around the scene. So that's kind of the rundown we make, and how labor intensive it's going to be to use it. Can we better utilize other resources, or is the drone a good resource for that particular incident? To answer your question about overflight people, if we stay over a building, which is generally what we'll do, so on the deployment for the tree lighting ceremony, we generally flew the drone over the buildings, over our building or over a building next door. We didn't hover or stay over the group of people whatsoever. And then in those uses, we also use the anti-collision light, which is a very bright white flashing light that you can't miss. And we also advertise that we're going to be doing it on social media.
Commissioner Ellman?
I think Commissioner Liu had her hand up ahead of me.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Liu.
Thank you, Commissioner Ellman. First, I just want to echo my fellow commissioners. Thank you so much for making this presentation. Really interesting to learn about this program, and very interesting to see how it has been kind of utilized in a lot of the search and rescue missions. So that was super interesting. I know that in your presentation, you also mentioned that right now it's not a replacement for helicopters per se, but it does seem like there are potential broader use cases for drones in the future, given improvements in the drones themselves, and then potentially evolution of the code and the rules of using it. How do you kind of see drones and their use growing or evolving within BPD's usage of them?
Right now, our two major limitations are the airspace that we're challenged with around the Burbank Airport, so we can't just launch on a whim because we think it's a necessity. We need to take into consideration the Burbank Airport and the strict limitations it puts upon us. The closer we get to the airport by blocks, literally, one block could make the difference depending on where you're at, east, west, north, south. We may not be able to fly at all. So that's one of the challenges. As you get further away from the airport, it gets a little bit easier, but the altitudes are limited. So it starts out at 50 feet, then it goes to 100 feet, out to 400 feet, which is the maximum altitude. And if you get into the mountainous area, if you're close to the ground, it's not limiting at all, but it really severely limits what we can use the drone for. So depending on how the rules change and develop with the FAA on using it around the airport type airspace, that's always going to be a limit until that gets loosened up. And with the advent of ADS-B, which is the satellite-based radar, for lack of a better term, I see that getting a little bit better, but I always seeing it being some type of limitation for sure. And the second limitation is just battery life. We're limited to 22 minutes. That takes into account the time to station and back, and we have to have a couple minutes of emergency time. It limits the amount of time we can be over a scene. So those are the two very limiting factors. So if those loosen up or get better, we will be able to utilize the drone that much more.
Got it. Thank you. I have a couple more quick questions. See that this drone program has been operating since 2018, and every single time you do a debrief on learnings from each deployment and how to improve for future deployments. Any kind of takeaways from the past few years that you can share in terms of improving the drone program and how you deploy the drone?
Sure. At this point, the technology is continuing to improve. Just like any other computer type based technology, if you bought something today, tomorrow it's going to be out of date and something else is going to be bigger and better. So we're looking, to the future, and if the funds are available, we're looking at potentially other type of equipment, and again, will help us stay in the air longer. And if we could stay in the air longer, we're able to utilize it in a much better fashion. As far as things that we could do better, every deployment we do something, and if it's the drone or anything we do in police work, every single time we go out and do something, there is something that we could have done better. So whether it's flying higher, flying lower, flying this way or that way, or our communication with the ground units is a big one. So what I see and I think is important as the pilot is not necessarily as important to the ground units or the commanders at the scene at the command post. They may want to know something different. So we debrief all that and we learn what we said, what we didn't say, and how we could paint a picture for those folks better. I think those are the main things that we learn.
Great, thank you.
Excellent. Commissioner Ellman, you have one more question?
Yes, thank you. Very impressed with the program, and thank you for making the presentation. Just a suggestion, any potential use of the drones on the night of July 4th in this town for all the illegal fireworks?
So that's certainly something we can look at. On 4th of July, the issue is they're going up everywhere. So it's not that we don't know that the fireworks are being fired off. We know that that's happening. But it's a matter of finding and getting to the people that are shooting them off before the ground units get there, right? So it takes us time to respond. It takes us time to get there. Certainly something that we can definitely look at.
Thank you.
Commissioner Fruzen?
Thank you. I just had one more question. So I know in that first video that you shared, the hiker, it said that the hiker was experiencing a mental health issue. And so I was wondering, I mean, I know when I've been around a drone now, granted it wasn't, I'm sure at the level of the equipment that you all are using, so it may be significantly different, but it was kind of loud, it was kind of unnerving. And, again, maybe that was because somebody was flying where they shouldn't have been, down my street or in my front yard or whatever it was. But I was just wondering, if you're aware that that's the situation versus the other hiker who maybe was just physically injured, how does that impact the operation? Are there special considerations to not further, endanger that person or upset them or the situation that they're going through?
It definitely does, especially if it's known that that's something that we're, as officers, that are trained to try to identify. And then obviously we're not trying to escalate anything, especially if somebody who's suffering a mental illness. In the video that you saw, the reason why the drone got as close as it did is we were trying to get that subject's attention because they were completely unresponsive and appeared to never even notice that the drone was right there. So that was just us trying to gather more intel to figure out how we could help this person.
Good. Thank you, gentlemen. That was very informative. We appreciate your presentation.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on here to our next item of business is the discussion and potential action with regard to the commission duties as outlined in the city charter. I believe Mr. Ellman had brought this up. Do you have any comments that you'd like to make, Mr. Ellman, to start us off?
Thank you, Chairman Chapman. It's just something that I think we should have a small discussion about since the Charter Review Committee has been created. If you read the charter, not very clear, but it's only like 3/4 of a page, and maybe it's enough. We have enough abilities and we don't need any more, but I would just like to discuss it and just see where it goes. Thank you.
Any other comments here? Commissioner Fruzen?
Yeah, I looked again at the five. There are five powers or duties that are assigned in the charter, and I think they are broad enough. That they do cover the initiatives I think that we have been taking and want to take. I mean, it certainly doesn't include, any, power to make decisions. It's an advisory role, research, role, those kinds of things, and then also a liaison with the community role. So I don't see anything maybe lacking there, other than there are some police commissions in larger cities, right, that have subpoena power or are involved in disciplinary processes and things like that. But I don't think that that's necessarily, that there's a groundswell of support for that here in Burbank. I'm not hearing a lot of support for that. So I don't know if other folks have other, perspectives or have heard other things, but.
All right. I know that the city of Pasadena and their police commission has gone through some issues and changes. I'm not sure if our charter commission is reviewing those types of things, or if it's something that we should even raise a hand to. Do we want to communicate with the charter committee or send them a statement of some type? Commissioner Elman?
Well, I think, we should, if we say everything is fine the way it is, it'd be nice to give them just a short letter saying that as a commission, we feel whatever abilities and rules we operate in are just fine with us, or we feel there should be a change, or, but I just think feedback is good for any committee.
Now, I didn't mention there might be another alternative, is that we might ask a charter member to attend one of our meetings. Ms. O, would that be a problem?
No, can't guarantee they'll come, but you can always ask anyone to attend the meeting. Again, as long as the discussion is related to the powers that are enumerated in the charter and the municipal code, which is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the police commission. I'm unclear what you would have them come and speak to you about, as opposed to what Commissioner Elman is suggesting, which is to provide feedback to the charter review committee. What would they come and talk to you about?
Well, going from Commissioner Fruzen, it doesn't sound like there's a lot of concern that would like to be raised at the, if I'm correct, at the Charter Committee for our Police Commission. But Mr. Elman, you seem to think that there is something there, yeah?
I'm not saying there is something. I'm just saying that this is a once in 5-year opportunity. And if we ignored it, I don't think we'd be doing our due diligence. If we come to the conclusion that everything is okay in the charter, I don't think it's going to really be wrong to just send a letter from the police commission informing charter review that we had the opportunity to look at the charter and we are very satisfied with what's in the charter today.
Commissioner Liu, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I think broadly, I agree with Commissioner Feruzin. Looking at the charter and the description, it's pretty broad and it's widely encompassing, but specifically doesn't involve, actual commission actionable oversight, if you will. So I think in terms of the charter language itself, I don't have any concerns with that. In terms of acting on these 5 points, potentially it's something for the commissioners ourselves to reflect on that and see if we can kind of put some processes in place. For example, I think the first one is to initiate studies and surveys. I know we went through the community survey that is done every 2 years, maybe finding a process of, incorporating the commission and the commissioners more into that process. But there's no actual change to the charter language itself. So the way that I'm kind of reading it and thinking about it is, how does the commission take this language and build in more kind of concrete steps to accomplish them versus changing the language itself, which I personally am fine with.
Commissioner Feruzin, did you have a comment there? Okay. I don't think anybody here has attended Nicole yet, or perhaps Commissioner Ellman, which is an organization of police commissions from across the country that attend these educational meetings once a year or more often. There is a variety of levels of police commissions. For example, the city of Los Angeles has, compared to Burbank, is much more significant as far as authority to investigate issues and to present their conclusions. Burbank's commission is, to me, very limited compared to some of the others across the state, across the country. It may be worth mentioning to the Charter Committee that they consider reviewing maybe a couple of local police commissions and see where we fall in line and if there needs to be any changes. And I'm especially thinking of Pasadena. Would anybody have an issue with that, or?
So, Mr. Chair, if I may, my understanding of this discussion item and potential action item tonight was that you as the commission wanted to discuss whether you were satisfied with your duties and responsibilities as outlined in the charter, or whether you wanted to make other suggestions, because there will be at some point a joint meeting or a discussion at City Council regarding police commissions, duties and responsibilities. Over the many years that I have attended these meetings, it has been a recurring theme with commissioners that they are not wholly satisfied with their tasks. But as Commissioner Feruzin and Commissioner Liu have pointed out, the way your responsibilities are laid out in the charter and then copied to a large degree in the municipal code is very broad. You have very broad powers under both our charter and our municipal code. And in many cases, it's been how you use them. Some commissions have been more effective than others, largely based upon the membership of the commission itself. So tonight's discussion, my understanding of tonight's discussion was going to be you were going to have a pre-discussion before the council discussion about your powers and responsibilities as outlined in the charter and commission. Again, that was my understanding, and that's how it was agendized, because that was staff's understanding of how this was going to happen. Your suggestion, Mr. Chair, that the Charter Committee suddenly take on these responsibilities, which I think are your responsibilities, to tell them if you are not satisfied and you want language changes, not for the Charter Committee to go out and research or make investigations, if you will, or suggestions as to that. You are the subject matter experts as to what as to your understanding of your responsibilities and duties as outlined in the charter. Perhaps I misunderstand you, Mr. Chair, but I think you are asking the Charter Committee to take on what is really your responsibility. If you are not satisfied, you need to discuss it, come to a consensus, and make recommendations to our council liaison and to the council about the changes that you want to see, not the Charter Review Committee.
All right. I'm going off our agenda for this evening, and it mentions that there's discussion and then potential action. And so I was trying to tie the two
Right.
together there.
No, the potential action would be for you to take action to make a recommendation.
Yes.
Right, making a recommendation is an action, and that's why that language is there. If you, after your discussion, vote as a body to make a recommendation to the council, that is action. So we wanted to be able to give you that ability to do that. And so that's why that language is there. But again, the underlying discussion was that you wanted to have a pre-meeting before the council meeting discussion about your responsibilities.
Could I ask, I'll come to you in just a moment, Commissioner Ferguson and Mr. Ellman. Do we have a timeline of where the Charter Committee is? Are they, I believe they meet until they decide they're done, but do we have an idea, are they probably going to meet for the next couple of months? Or are they near the end of their discussions?
I don't have any knowledge of that. I sincerely doubt they are at the end of their discussions. I think Mr. Ellman may have some more insight.
All right.
Based on my experience being on charter review, on the last charter review committee, it probably ran for about 6 or 7 months, meeting once a month. And I believe, I don't even know if they've had their first meeting yet. But Miss O, what I was, my thinking was a little different. Let's just say we wanted to change something. That instead of going to the council, we could write a letter or send a representative to Charter Review and say, we want something. And then in Charter Review, when they write their letter to the city council, they can say, we have met with the police commission and they would like to have such and such. And then they do their presentation to the council. Am I right or wrong?
Well, the Charter Review Committee, again, is an advisory board, just as you are, and they have their scope of responsibilities as to what they're advising the council on. So I do believe that the way you've outlined the responsibilities is how they would do it on their end. But separately, that doesn't preclude you from also, making recommendations to council and to liaison, or specifically to our council liaison about what your ideas are. If you want to see changes, or as Ms. Commissioner Ellman pointed out, if you're wholly satisfied with the language and think that it's sufficient, letting them know that as well. One doesn't preclude the other. So if you go to charter and you send a letter or you send a representative to go speak at that meeting regarding the commission as a body's feelings about the language in the charter, that doesn't preclude you from also reaching out to the council.
Just FYI, 5 years ago, Commissioner Diamond from the Police Commission made a presentation at Charter Review.
Commissioner Ferguson?
Yes, this is a question for you, Chair Chapman. I'm just wondering, since you mentioned specifically the changes for the Pasadena Police Commission, I was just wondering, is there anything that you saw there that you felt would be appropriate or is possibly appropriate that you would want to discuss tonight, or is there anything kind of specific?
Actually not tonight. And the reason is I'd like to get some more input from some other areas. And we're missing a couple of commissioners this evening. I wonder if this might be something that That's why I was asking about the time element here from Ms. O, is that maybe something that we might be able to table for our next meeting or 2 meetings down the road. Would anybody have an issue with that? All right. Just to be sure, do I need to take a vote to table something? No, I've got Ms. O right here. Ms. O, do we need to take a vote to table something to the next meeting?
What I would recommend, we have an action agenda item that talks about future agenda items. So we can bring it up there if you want to bring back this item at a future meeting, either the next one or the one after that, some subsequent one. As I said, I believe you have plenty of time. One suggestion I would make is if you as individual commissioners go out and do research, right, on this issue and how other commissions are set up, how other oversight bodies are set up. What I would implore you to do is not just look at what powers they have, but also look at their setup. How are they different than our body? What kind of resources do they have? What kind of background and qualifications do their commissioners have to do these additional responsibilities that perhaps they are tasked with, such as Los Angeles Police Commission, which is set up entirely differently than we are. Their duties and responsibilities are incredibly different than we are. And so just to look at that body and say, well, they get to do discipline hearings, they get to do evaluations of their chief. Well, they are able to do that because how they are set up, and that is very different from how our charter has set us up as an advisory board to our council. So you really need to look at the whole picture is my point. But for today's purposes, if you are done discussing this item, it's, as an initial foray into this topic, we can certainly put it on for another future meeting when perhaps we have all of our commission members present and can participate.
I think you make some excellent points there. As far as the differences in the makeup of their structure as well as their purpose in other communities. However, we're not looking for something that is necessarily going to affect this commission this year, this month. As you know, the Charter Committee meets every 5 years. Mr. Ellman, you can confirm that. It's something that we would be looking at for future commission style, and it would, after it leaves the Charter Commission, it goes to the council, it goes for a vote with the citizens. This is something that is long-term going down the road. But if we have any questions or something, this would be the time to get the ball rolling. Commissioner Fruzen, did you have a hand up there?
I guess I just want to clarify that are there these 5 responsibilities or powers laid out in the charter? Then there is also information, in the municipal code. So I'm just wondering or want to confirm that we are not. This isn't the moment to discuss the pieces that are in the municipal code, but really focusing on what's in the charter, or is that something up to our discretion? And, obviously the Charter Commission may not need the feedback around the municipal code may not go to the Charter Commission, but that may just go to City Council. Those two things are kind of tied together in my mind, those two pieces. So I'm just wondering if we wanted to discuss both of those pieces at the same time, even though the feedback may go to different bodies.
I'm looking at to see if there's any other comments coming here. Going back, Ms. O, yes or no, do we need to have a vote if we decide to table?
No, you don't need to have a vote. Staff is here. We can hear what you'd like. If we need to bring it back, which is what I'm hearing, we can. To Commissioner Feruzan's point, if I understand what I believe to be your statement or question, the municipal code largely mirrors our charter, but there are slight differences.
Oh, no,
The main
no, no.
big difference.
So, excuse me, I don't want to go in the wrong direction here. What I was asking is that if we were to table this evening's discussion to another meeting, do we need to vote to do that?
No, you don't need to vote. Staff will put it back on the agenda if you want to continue discussion when all the other members are here. But the way we agenda, the way we write the language of the agenda may be different based upon Commissioner Feruzan's point as to whether or not we're just looking at the charter or we're also looking at the municipal code. And so this is why I'm following up with her comment.
All right. Well, I think tonight that we were looking at specifically with the city charter and nothing beyond that.
Right. I'm just asking if it sounds like we're trying to move it to another date. And I'm just wondering if we want to expand when we re-agendize this item at the end of the meeting, which I think is we have to go through that formal process again. If we want to include, say, it's a discussion around the city charter and the municipal code. Just as an example, I think, as I understand it, the municipal code includes information about maybe how many members there are, right? Because that's not stated in the charter. The municipal code includes information about the qualifications, whether they're required, suggested, and what they are of the folks who apply for the commission, things like that. So to me, those two pieces, I think they fit together. So it's kind of maybe, I apologize for not raising this earlier, but maybe more productive to have a conversation about those two things at the same time. So mostly my question is, if, wondering how you all feel about that, about expanding the discussion to include both those pieces, and then my suggestion would be to then slightly change the new agenda item that we introduced at the end to encompass the municipal code and charter, if we're all in agreement about that.
Okay, so you're saying to go, suggesting that it would be good to go ahead and table this discussion specifically about the charter, and then if we wanted to, in addition, add another agendized item about items beyond the charter, that would be good. Does everybody else feel pretty good with that? Commissioner Liu?
I just want to clarify, is it that we want to introduce, I guess I'm not hearing that we want to introduce an additional agenda item, but rather amend the current conversation to also include the municipal code and talk about them in tandem, since they are similar, but there's some overlap, but it's not identical. That's what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I'm trying to keep this kind of narrow here. What I'd be looking at is tabling this discussion until our next meeting, and partly because we're missing a couple of commissioners this evening, 3 of them, in fact. And then we can, at that time, if we want to add additional items for more agenda, future agenda, we can expand on that.
No, my suggestion, and I can save this until when, as I understand it, this discussion will conclude without any vote. We'll move to the next item. At the end of the meeting, we have to, I believe, Ms. O, correct me if I'm wrong, we will have to propose a new agenda item for next month or the month after, which would be, again, to discuss the charter and potentially take an action. So my question right now is, at that time, when the agenda item is introduced to around this discussion again, at the end of this meeting, can we say a discussion and potential action around the charter and municipal code? So it's just one agenda item. It's just, instead of literally copying the same agenda item we had today, it's making a slight addition of the municipal code to that item.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm good with that. Everybody else? Then we will go ahead and do that. Table the discussion until our next meeting, and it will include a slight expansion over just the discussion over charter review. Is that good with you, Sherry? Yeah, okay. Our next item for discussion is a discussion of the hybrid public comments period upon return to in-person board meetings and commission meetings. And our next, I believe, and I think we have Mr. Puglosi to expand on that, but I believe our next meeting is going to be open to the public. Would you like to go ahead there?
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the Police Commission, Captain J.J. Puglisi. So on the April 12th council meeting, council decided that beginning with the council meeting that opens to the public on May 3rd, that for 90 days forward from that date, that will continue to allow for remote comment into the meetings, meaning that we would allow people to phone in to make comments and not have to be present in chambers. After that 90 days, they'll reassess and determine if that's something that they're going to continue, or that we've reached a point where people can return to chambers if they wish to make a comment. So moving forward for the Police Commission, we will encourage people to appear in person at the next commission meeting in May. And any speaker that appears in person in chambers will be taken first. So speakers in chambers will have priority. After any speakers in chambers have finished their comments, then we would transition to anyone who has telephoned in to make comments to the Police Commission meeting. With that being said, and this is something that we've always had and retained, but just a reminder that depending on how heavy of an agenda we have and how many comments we have that evening, we are able to limit either the total duration for comments. For example, we're only going to take comments for up to an hour, or we can limit the amount of time that the particular caller has when they call in. So all callers tonight will have 2 minutes or 1 minute to speak, and or some combination of both of those things. So that's the plan moving forward into the coming months for the next 90 days past May 3rd, and after that we'll see where it takes us. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Lieutenant Puglisi?
Captain.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. I just wanted to make sure. The city council has already instituted this.
Correct.
Did they go to an hour limit, or did they do anything specific?
They haven't right now. What I'm saying is that you have the right, depending, if we had some major nationwide incident, we had a large agenda for the Police Commission, and we're anticipating a number of callers that night, we would be able to place parameters around the public comment so that we could still achieve the agenda of the commission that night.
Okay, excellent. Is there any questions or comments by our commissioners?
Thank you.
Good. Thank you, sir. I think we have the chief.
We do. Good evening, Commissioners and Chair Chapman. How are you this evening? Before I give you some updates on what's going on and provide some other commentary, I've appointed Captain Puglisi to be our liaison person as we transition back to normalcy. So that for being coming back to chambers and what that looks like. So in the event that there is, and this actually impacts Ford boards that meet in the chambers, then is televised, where we can take calls, where we can take people coming in. For other commissions, it's more challenging, but they're navigating through that. But in the event that there is an issue, I'm going to have Captain Puglisi provide you the process so there's clarity for all in the event you're unable to be in the seat per the Brown Act. And Ms. O, if we misspeak, please correct us, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. So I attended a city meeting on Tuesday to discuss how we were going to move forward once we open up for in-person meetings. And the expectation of the city, obviously the Brown Act, is that all commissioners, all board members, all council members would appear in person for the public when meetings open to the public. Now, given COVID and other circumstances, there may be health concerns or something else that arises that makes certain members feel that they're unable to do that. So if those members wish to remain on the board, commission, et cetera, then they would need to engage the city's ADA coordinator to see if could be accommodations made for those issues. In the event, after going through that process, that there was an accommodation made, and for instance, if a commissioner was to remain at home during the meeting and participate in the meeting from home, then that would require on the agenda for the meeting the posting of whatever address that commissioner is going to be at during that meeting, as well as a posting outside of that address for the public. And in addition, if any members of the public decide to show up at that address to engage as part of the meeting, it's not something where somebody's going to necessarily need to admit someone into their house, but there certainly has to be a space available for the public to be able to comment and engage. Did I get all that accurate, Ms. O?
So that's one possible accommodation if a commissioner were to go through an ADA interactive process due to a medical condition or a disability such that they are unable to personally appear in council chambers for future meetings when we all go back to in-person meetings, which is going to start in May. So that's just one example of a possible reasonable accommodation that would satisfy the Brown Act, but also accommodate the medical need of the individual.
Chief?
So the city staff, coupled with the city council, have worked very hard to get back to normal as far as our commission meetings and city council meetings. So they want to make sure that they are accommodating and in compliance with the Brown Act. So what you don't see is the behind-the-scenes work to make sure what we're doing is legal and proper so that the public is able to participate in council and commission sessions. So there is a lot of heavy lifting that is done, and I just want to make sure that the commission knows moving forward. So a couple things to report out. One, first off, I would like to thank Lieutenant Lasacco and Officer Ryan Rhodes for their presentation, because what they brought and presented here tonight is really a technical skill set that, yes.
Excuse me, Chief, I'm sorry to interrupt. Was this this process something that we needed to take a vote on?
No.
This is what the city manager has urged us to do.
By way of city council.
Okay.
I'm
sorry.
And just a report out of thank Rose and Lasacco. They did a great job. As far as some reporting out, the Nicole Conference is going to be in September. That's 11th through the 15th. So I would ask the commissioners to start thinking about who is interested in attending. And then this would be an item that we would agendize in May to see interest and to see how that's going to look moving forward. The joint session with City Council and the Police Commission is going to be in July. Initially, we thought it was going to be in June. However, OIR has not completed their report. The contract they have with the city attorney's office is that the report will be delivered by the end of this month. Typically, we get 6, 10, 12 weeks to review, respond. There is a session that involves the city attorney, city manager, and the police department before it's presented in a joint session as far as our responses, and if there's anything that we have to do, we have time to do that. So it's either going to happen either July 12th, July 19th, or July 26th. And really, we're in a holding pattern to see when there's going to be a joint session with our city council and the Burbank Unified School Board. So we're hoping it'll be July 19th, but for kind of transparency and early warning, you're looking at either July 12th, 19th, or 26th. Some other notable events that are on the horizon, April 27th, we are going to have it's called a morning fuel with your first responders, kind of a clever way of saying coffee with a cop and a fireman. So it's going to be at the police station. It's going to be in the back of the police station, and that'll go from 8 in the morning till 10 in the morning. If you're available, come by, you meet our officers, and also we'll have the fire folks out there. On the 30th of April, we have the drug take-back event. This will be staged in the backside of the police department. We do this typically annually, a pretty seamless process. There'll be a lot of social media postings related to that, and that is on April 30th from 10 to 2 p.m. That's going to be a Saturday, correct? Yeah, okay, thank you. And then the following Saturday, May 7th, is going to be Police and Fire Service Day, and that'll be at the police station and fire station in the parking lots behind the facilities there. They also close off a couple streets there. All of the fire department has their rigs and activities. Police has all their vehicles. I think we'll have the CHP there that will talk about child safety in cars, and they'll have some games. If you have little guys and gals, it is a great event for them. So I would encourage the public certainly to attend, and as many commissioners as possible to attend. And then my favorite is going to be on May 17th when we have Muffins with Met. So instead of Coffee with a Cop, we're going to have Muffins with Met. We'll have our Met team there. We'll have muffins, and that'll be at the Miracle Bakery, which is at 1529 North San Fernando. And lastly, and this is some good news for us because this is the path to getting back to normalcy, is what we're starting up our community academy. So that's going to be June 2nd is when is that the application process? The start date of the academy is June 2nd. So that's been a 2-year hiatus, and looking forward to that. Our department is, and hopefully the community is also. So that is my report outs. So, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Elman has his hand raised.
Mr. Hellman, go ahead.
A question for the chief. I might be wrong, but did the Baker to Barstow race happen?
So you are wrong. It's Baker to Vegas.
Thank you.
Okay. It did happen, and we were there. I was there. Ms. Nakamura was there, and some other folks were there to support the team. We did not run. We did well, and very proud of our team as far as completing a really arduous race. For folks that don't know about Baker to Vegas, it starts in Baker, California, and ends up in Las Vegas at the Rio Hotel. It's 120 miles. There's 20 legs, and it's a pretty grueling course. What was problematic for that race is that at the start of the race, and it's a staggered start, there's about 230 teams, law enforcement teams throughout the world that participate. And it's a staggered start, starting at 09, 10, 11, 1,200 hours, all the way for the fastest team at 1,700 hours, 5 in the evening. But for the teams that went off during the heat of the day, 100 degrees, running on asphalt, kicks it up to 115, 120. had some folks on many teams that had to have a medical intervention. We had an incident, but our folks were able to complete the race and finished in the top 10. And again, very proud of them. But it was a collective team effort. You have 20 runners, but we probably had more support personnel to support our team and the logistics, all of that. And it was a great event for all. And thank you, Commissioner Elman, for reminding me, because I forgot all about that.
Thank you for correcting me on my geography. You are so correct.
That's all right. Yeah. Okay. Good, thank you.
Good. Thank you, sir. Do we have our list of pending items for future agenda items.
Chair, this is what I'm going to recommend, if it's all right.
Yes, sir.
I anticipate that there's going to be a robust conversation with all 7 commissioners next session. Robust conversation.
Yeah.
About what you have tabled, in addition to MET presentation, the self-evaluation subcommittee report, and also Nicole. And for the sake of our staff and lifting associated with that, I'm going to recommend that you kind of look at those 4 items so that we can get ready for June.
All right. That's not to preclude that nobody can suggest something for beyond
You can
that.
do whatever you want to,
Yeah.
but to optimize on what you want to do, I'm just throwing it out there, and Ms. O may want to weigh in.
Excellent. All right. Is everybody in agreement for our next meeting? That would look good.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the 4 items? I missed maybe the last 1 or 2, Chief.
The chief suggested that because of the items and the probable time involvement for next meeting, we have the tabled discussion that we had. We've got a discussion on the MEH presentation. We've got the self-evaluation coming up in May, and
Nicole,
Nicole, yes. And that probably would fill a good evening right there. There are other items that are on our pending list, but pending means that they're coming up, but we don't have a specific time necessarily for them. One thing that I would like to add, I was requested to do this, is for a future meeting, not in May, that we review business cards. And what I would like to do at that item, agendized item, is to agendize it as a discussion of requesting the council for the permission to use the business cards, along with a request to the city manager's office for guidance on the use of the cards and possible issues that might come up with misuse of the cards. Would anybody have any problem in seconding that as a motion for a future agenda item? Do I have a second for it? Doesn't sound like the motion's going to pass. Nope. Okay. That's it. Our next meeting then, does anybody else have any other suggestions for future agenda items? Commissioner Feruzen.
I just wanted to clarify, Ms. O, do we need to motion for a new item around the city charter and the municipal code, or is our discussion prior enough to add that to the next agenda?
The discussion is enough. I clearly understand what you want, so we'll agendize it accordingly.
Are we good? Okay. Our next meeting then is on Wednesday, May 18th at 6 p.m. We are now adjourned. Thank you.